So Eiichiro Oda is an amazing writer. This video, guys, I'm talking about why Oda is like great author, right? And they focus, of course, on Nami's home island, right? Belemere, of course, full Nojiko, Genzo, the village, right? And I have to say this thing, right? Watching the live action really made me realize how amazing Oda is. Of course, I've been a big One Piece fan for 20 years, right? So I was reading, the Nami backstory, basically when it was new, right? And watching the live action, then I had to go back and I rewatched the OVA of Nami, the movie of Nami. And then I reread the manga, right? And it really made me realize again then, my god, I feel like I'm 14 again, 13 again. I feel like I'm a little kid again, because my god, was Oda a good author, right? When he wrote the Nami Flashbacks. And I always had this, I don't know, annoyance, I suppose, that people are always like, oh, this is the best arc or whatever. I always felt that East Saga is one of the best arcs, right? Because it's focused on the characterization of characters, of the flashbacks, so on, right? And while I do step like Enies Lobby more, step right, so on. So they're all arcs are better. I always felt that East Saga was one of the strongest parts of One Piece, and still is. And I never got the whole idea of, you have to watch 300 episodes. No, I felt that One Piece was good immediately, right? When Luffy and Shanks lost his arm. That chapter 1, that was good. But especially, of course, the Bele-mere flashback is the high point of East Saga. So, no, I never got the whole concept of you have to watch this many episodes. I liked One Piece from the beginning, and I especially liked it when it was new here. This video here, I'll give you my reaction to rewatching and so on. But I'll talk about why this is a well-written storyline. But I also want to bring up something a little bit later. But I do think, in the general theory here, that the reason people don't value it so much is because it's the first arc, right? The first major arc. And I think almost everyone that's a fan today of One Piece have binged that, right? But they all binged it, yeah. And when I was again reading it, that was the news. I read a chapter per week, more or less, right? So, I think a lot of people have kind of glossed over the first arc. But anyway, let's talk about Bele-mere, Nojiko, and Genzo and so on. Just to give some context to it, right? I have to say that I will, of course, make some live action comparison. The reason are two-folded, right? First is because, yes, I went back and I mentioned rewatched it because the live action was so insanely terrible at episode 7 and 8, right? And I want to address the point again here, the people are always going to use as a hater. No, I liked episode 6, right, okay? I also say this thing, Sunny's flashback was perfectly fine. Was it the greatest thing ever? No, but it was a good flashback, right? So I genuinely was surprised how insanely bad episode 7 was, right? So that's kind of my standpoint of it, right? And then as I mentioned, I have to I really wanted to rewatch the anime, right? And also rereading it. And really, like I mentioned, really made me think, oh my god, this is so well written. There's so much context to these characters. They're so well, everything around them are so many good points, right? And that's also why, again, that I'm so incredibly frustrated people keep defending live action, right? Because they basically removed everything, right? With Bele-mere, Nojiko, and Genzo and so on. This was my second video on this topic now. But my first video was more like my initial knee-jerk reaction of, oh my god, this is terrible. And this is more like my, how now I've analyzed, now I've rewatched this like twice, and I read the manga like a couple of times since again, right? Over the last weeks. Now I'm really into Bele-mere, man. This is my moment now. But on a serious note, right, this is I think one of Oda's best works. And actually, honestly, not some very critical here, but I think actually a little bit of how he used to write characters is a little lacking in the Wano and so on. No, I get some hate here. No. I mean, I don't think Wano is the worst thing ever, like that, but I do think that, like rereading these old chapters, because I read the whole saga, and I have to say, as a side note, yeah, I was like, he used to write the characters, he used to write quite differently in the beginning, actually, comparable to how he writes right now. And I was talking about the fights, talking about like, Yamato's flashback, but Nami, whatever. They were different, yeah, it's a little bit different feel to them, that maybe it's not a video, but there's a different feel to it, his early works are different, definitely. Some stuff is definitely better later on too. But I do feel that some of his later flashback definitely lasted a bit of that emotional punch, I suppose, in the beginning. That being said, though, as a side note here, one of my favorite storylines, right, in the whole One Piece, or flashback style, is, of course, Law's flashback, right? Law, Roshinante, Doflamingo. Now, it makes him a Dofi fanboy, but I think that's probably where he hit every. I would argue so here. Then before we get into last point before we get into the Bele-mere bit is that I think that Law's flashback is his best work. Yeah, I think that's his best work. Everything from the sad backstory with Law to the scene, there's not a dice or one. I think that is where he peaked. Okay, in my opinion, that's the ultimate. That is an 11 out of 10 Gouda. Not saying that this is like 10 out of 10 flashback, right? Bele-mere not good, 10 out of 10. But yeah, I think Law is that like magic 11 out of 10. It also made, you have to remember that Law's flashback also, characterized Luffy as well and so on, yeah. So it also characterized the bad guy too, right? One of the main supporting characters, the bad guy and so on, whatever. But it is very, very well written. So that might be a future video. But yeah, the Law flashback is probably, I would say, his best work of all time. Of all these years he's done writing, I think that's the number one. This is arguably his second best work. I think this and the Robin flashback, right, the waifus, yeah, but yeah. I made that video about Robin, right, a few months ago. I think Robin and Nami have the best two flashbacks. Right? Now, why is this so well written then? Well, there's so many points that really, I think scores here in the Nami flashback. Right? So first of all, we have Bele-mere, right? And if you see my Reddit meme post and my Twitter post and all right, I've been very, very critical, right? How they treated Bele-mere. But the thing is that Bele-mere has really good characterization, right? And that's why I really love Oda's writing. So it starts immediately by establishing that she is poor, right? She's poor, she can't afford to pay for, she can't afford to, right? And she plays it off as, I'm just being a young, attractive lady, Nami, don't worry, Nojiko-chan, I'm just like, mommy gotta get a boyfriend, yeah, she plays it off as like, I'm just a sexy lady, I can't eat food, yeah, I gotta have my figure, right? So immediately it plays it off as, trying to protect her children, right, from the harsh reality of being poor. But it also plays off, her, she's supposed to be this, like, punk ass, tomboy, boko girl, right, delinquent lady, Yankee, she basically like Yankee, right. And it plays off that typical Yankee guy or whatever culture in Japan too. That she's like, gotta have my body, And there's another scene, right, where Genzo brings back Nami home, and he's angry and stealing books, all right. And then Belemere is like, oh yeah, I can pay with my body, Genzo. Right? Belemere is like, you wanna sleep together? I can pay with my He's like, get them, Belemere, stop doing that. Like, wow, come on, yeah. So it's an important part, right, of her character, that she's this, again, tough, badass warrior lady, right? But also, like I said, right, typically kind of Yankee, Gairu. If you understand Japanese culture, I'm talking about that she has that kind of, she's a punk-ass warrior lady, but also kind of, arguably slutty, right, or whatever, arguably she does a lot of men, whatever, because, she's like a masculine, tomboyish woman, right? She probably gets around, to get my point, right? I'm just saying that typically in that characterization, right, so she's gonna play off as that, right, very masculine, very, has a bunch of boyfriends, whatever, right, and that's what is seen maybe at surface value, right, at first just like a very, at a very simple viewpoint, this scene might be like, whatever, but if you understand her character and Japanese culture, you understand Oda is presenting her as, again then, right, a tomboy, right, a boko girl, right, whatever, then a Yankee, so I mentioned, but also then that typical, like, she kind of slutty, whatever, but also then she plays it off for the kids, like, no, I'm just trying to get laid, so don't worry about my food, So it's a lot of character in just these few scenes, right, the first few minutes with Bele-mere, which, to not be that guy, but obviously the live action completely has nothing of this whatsoever. That being said, though, I don't want to talk too much about live action, but I want to point out, though, that a bunch of people wrote me comments on some of my Bele-mere memes, right? And some guys were like, well, you can't do this, sexy Bele-mere because of Me Too. And I was like, well, yeah, they can, but to some extent, I understand where you're coming from. Obviously, Hollywood, Netflix, whatever, right? Doesn't want to have this, like, kind of naughty characters. That's true, but that's kind of silly because Bele-mere is the aggressive, sexual person in all her interactions. Yeah, it's not like it's not like Genzo is like, oh, can you pay with your, she's like, you want me? Yeah, like, so I don't really see the problem, honestly. Even for Netflix or whatever, right? they could have done that, because again, the woman, she's the one trying to, or at least joking about getting heavy sex, right? So, no, I think, but I see where people are coming from. I mean, I do agree that one reason, perhaps, that these, kind of the, so to speak, slutty mommy part was removed from Netflix might just be purely because they were like, oh, we can't have that's not okay, maybe. But again, she's the one that wants it, so I don't see the problem with it. Then of course she beats up Nami. But the important point here really is that something that's really missed, I think, on people here, is that Nami isn't just angry at Belemere. What Nami is actually doing, right, is presented in the next scene. So an important part of this flashback and why it's so well written is because Oda is also establishing that not only is Nami poor or whatever, right, but she really loves her mom, right, because she actually wants to leave Belemere, right. So the scene, I think the scene actually is quite misunderstood by people. People see the scene as Nami being angry at the poor, right, but no, Nami is trying to make Belemere abandon her because she thinks that Belemere has to eat food, right, and Belemere can't afford having daughters. Because we see in the next scene, right, that Nami is trying to run away from home and try to live with Genzo, right? Because Genzo, as she later is put out as her father, right? He's the surrogate bonus daddy, right? So, like I said, the slap scene, I think, unfortunately, is very misunderstood, right, from a lot of people, honestly. And again, missing the true context, right, of the scene. Nami is trying to piss her off. Sure, it's a monster as a kid, all right, but the deeper part of it is that, yeah, like I said, she actually wants to live with Genzo or someone else. Not because she doesn't love Belemere, but because she's like, oh man, mom can't eat, I need to get another parent, right? So, because this here, she's trying to basically, run away and live with Genzo, right? And now then, yes, we tell her that she's a badass marine, later and so on. But before that, yeah, it's an important point that she's actually trying to abandon Belemere, right? Not because she doesn't love her, but she's afraid of Belemere, again, being too, like I said, being on a diet, all the time, right? So that's missed out on, right? So one thing really bothered me with the live version, right? And I'm sorry if I go too much like the live version comparable, but I think it's a very good point to make, is that the live action has the scene when she finds them, and that's like a dramatic and emotional, but the important scene is this thing, right? And the next scene. Because this here is showing Belemere not wanting to give medicine to my daughters before me, right? So kind of establishing her as, the sacrificial mother, right? And then this scene here is also very important, right? Especially earlier with the whole Yankee and so on culture part, right? That Belemere is again presented as a crazy tomboy Yankee waifu kind of character, right? So no one in the village actually believes in her being a good mom, right? Because they're always like, but you're like a crazy tomboy lady. You can't be a mom. You're basically more men than we are, Gen's like, you're more manly than I am. You can't be a mother, right? And again, Kat as a character is establishing that she's like a warrior lady, coming to later to all right, but there's also a build up, that Belemere is basically a tough warrior, right? In that sense too. If you remove the gender from it, right, mom or dad or whatever, it is also again then pointing out that she's like a fighter, right? More so than a homemaker, right? She's a woman that goes to the battlefield and punches people in the face, right? So that's an important part of her conversation, right? And also knows that it doesn't have a pinwheel on it. This is of course very important later, right? When Bele-mere owns Arlong, right? Temporarily. And the flashback, the Oda writes it, right? I think it's really telling too, because this kind of now that has summarized Belemere's character, right? She's this cool, badass, tough girl that finds these two babies, right, in the war and adopts them, right? And then she wants to be a cool mommy instead, right? And we understand her backstory, she's a warrior and all this stuff, right? And it kind of ends with her, actually doing some cool martial art, whatever, to do some cool badass stuff. But of course, eventually gets owned by Arlong anyway, because a fishman is very powerful, right? So this kind of establishes Bele-mere, right, in that sense. And then of course we have some more of that later. But what I put out there, why Oda's a mass first to it, because at the Bele-mere Destiny, right, which arguably is the saddest in One Piece, I think it's like, again, top 3, right, the best flashback in One Piece. It's so good too, because when she dies here, it basically goes from her as a character to Genzo, right, daddy, right, the father, right, basically, right, the bonus papa, right. Now he instead gets character, right? He's been there in the flashback, right, talked to Nami, he's been there with the book and so on, but now we're gonna have more of Genzo, Genzo's gonna stand up to them, come there sooner, right, Genzo is gonna have the Pinwheel later, So he kind of moves a little bit to him, right? But also, of course, Nojiko. So that's also why it's so well written, because yeah, it makes Bele-mere, Nojiko, and Genzo become very well written characters, right? And also, of course, constantly dynamically having Nami, right, interacting with all three of them, and also the village Yankee, right? So Nami also gets away, also, you know, more cases too, right? But I think also a good point to make here. After she dies, he kind of swaps over, right, and keeps, you know, characterize all the characters. And again, not to be like, oh, the live action, but of course, a big issue is not only that they removed this scene from Bele-mere, I'll explain later on in the reaction part, but a big point after it, according to the mentioned, right, is that Genzo gets characterized. He's completely removed basically in the live action. I know he's in the live action, but you know what I mean. His scenes are completely removed, right? But also then, which of course I have said before, said again, that made no sense, is that every scene after this death here, right, with Nojiko are also removed, right? And she said hates Nami, so that's also one reason I bring it up. But I think it's very important to point out, right, that she's like, it just doesn't make any sense for the live version. I'm sorry, it doesn't make any sense, right? After this scene here, we're gonna have later on in the storyline, right, that Nojiko is gonna get a tattoo, right? So we can go jump to now. So a very important scene, right, after mom dies, is to go this scene and then up to Nojiko, right? So this here characterizes Nami, right? Now she's forced to work for Arlong, but she gets paid, right? So she likes it in a way, right? But it was actually more about that she wants to work for Arlong to protect, you know, everyone in the village, right? And I'm sorry to be a bit a dead horse, right? But by removing the Genzo to save her life, right? And by removing that the village also to save her life, this doesn't make much sense in the live action, because, you know, she's actually working to try to save all the villagers. But they actually like her, right, in the flashback, yeah, in the manga and anime. So it makes a lot more sense, right? You know, this here is her working for Arlong to protect everyone, right? So and everyone, of course, knows that, yeah. So it makes a lot more sense in the original, like 10 times more. But what's very important here is that after this scene, it also then, as I mentioned, characterize Nojiko, right? Because now she's gonna show them the tattoo, right? And be like, yeah, I got the Arlong tattoo, I'm a part of the crew, right? The scene after that, of course, Nojiko is shown also having her tattoos, right? You know, so Nami, of course, meets her. You know, Nojiko still, you know, trying to run, you know, mom's Mikan farm, right? And then Nojiko has all her tattoos and her hair and so on, right? And Nami is like, no, Nojiko, what happened to your body, right? She's like, you know, I think tattoos are badass, right? Yeah, you know. The tattoo is a really important point, you know, like the Nami has a tattoo, right? Nojiko later has it, and so on. Then, of course, we can't forget Nojiko takes a bullet for Nami, right? It's also, of course, removed in the live action. But honestly, I'm sorry if I'm beating a dead horse really, really hard, right? But like, I'm sorry, I am. I wanna make the video how much I love Oda's writing, right? But it's just like, I'm sorry, it's like a low-hanging fruit. But the easiest way to show why Oda is a superior writer, like by 100 times better than these live action writers, right? Is because what the F were they doing with making Nojiko hate Nami? It doesn't make any sense. Okay, you can argue over the, you know, Belemere was removed and all her cool scenes and Genzo was removed and so on. But the dumbest part, honestly, I think, is that Nojiko hates her. Yeah, this just doesn't make any goddamn sense, right? You know, Nojiko, as I mentioned, right, she gets the Arlong tattoo. She gets a very similar tattoo, right, to Arlong seen in the image here. Obviously doesn't have the Arlong tattoo, but she gets a very similar style, right, the same color and everything, to look like Nami, right? And it's very emotional scene with their kids, and Nami is like crying, and she's like, I love you, and they got this, you know, she obviously understands that Nojiko is trying to look like her. Her hair is the same, and, you know, I mean, obviously it's blue, but, you know, she really tries to look like Nami, right, you know, and so on. And then she also takes a bullet for Nami, right? but I have to say that, yeah, like I keep saying it, but like making Nojiko hate Nami was the dumbest thing ever, right? And until people gonna complain that she was, you know, she had changed her appearance, but no, it's the bigger issue is that she doesn't love Nami. It's just a weird rewriting, right? And I don't want to make the video too much about live action, but like I said, it truly is the low-hanging fruit. Like, it's just so illogical, and again, then, you know, it ruins this dynamic, right? You know, it's just, and obviously I plotted them. Why does she have the tooth for it? Yeah, why does she have, I said about the video, but yeah, why does she even have the tooth for that if, you know, if she doesn't like Nami. You know, yeah, in the live action, she still looks exactly like Nami, right? But she hates Nami. It doesn't make any sense. It's just illogical, yeah. You know what? One thing I promise you guys here is that I have most One Piece figures, right? You know, I got freaking Bond over there, Nico Robin over there, right? You know, we got of course Nami here. You know, I got a couple of Boa Hancocks, got Red Dew, we got all the stuff, right? But I have to admit, I don't actually own a Nojiko figure. I'm gonna buy that. Next time I buy a figure, I'm gonna buy me a Nojiko figure, okay? She deserves to be there, yeah. Blue hair Nami. But anyway, but honestly, I should buy a freaking Nojiko figure. Nojiko, again, really shows what Uber's a great writer at, because my god, man, he makes me really love Nojiko too, you know. She's like a super supportive older sister, right? And now this is in the flashback, well, this is after this flashback ended, right? But before the flashback, when Nojiko is trying to explain to them, right? Usopp, and she sees the Usopp thing, and Zoro and Sunny, and a little bit Luffy, of course, leaves, but you know, he's trying to, right? That also makes so much more sense too, because she understands Nami really well. She's her biggest sister, right? No one knows Nami as well as she does, right? And no one loves Nami as much as she does. So her trying to like navigate the Nami Usopp incident with the knife thing, right? The Arlong bit, trying to explain to Zoro and Sunny and so on. Like that thing is also really important. It shows her intelligence, and you know, it just makes so much sense. So basically, before the flashback, you can see how she also is maybe not manipulative, but she's quite skilled, you know, in that charming, you know, same with Nami and Bele-mere, right? You know, like mommy, right? You know, similar charming and so on, right? But basically, trying to navigate the whole friendship thing, right? Betrayal thing. And then we get the flashback, and then we understand why Nojiko is acting like she is, right? You know, because she's trying to help Nami in her own way, right? And then, of course, leads to her getting shot, right? But it's like, all of that, of course, live action completely removes. but I want to put it out to Jen speaking here. My god, it's so well written by Oda, because he makes both Bele-mere and Nojiko, you know, become so real, right? And then, of course, lastly, Genzo. So Genzo, you know, it's cool extra popper, right? I always love this scene with Genzo, right? It takes me up in the end of the backstory. Is that, you know, Genzo gets the Pinwheel, right? Because baby Nami is scared by him. And yeah, Genzo, like I said earlier, is yet another really well written character by Oda, because even if he doesn't have that many scenes, he's kind of like a bonus. I'll say it. He's like in every Bele-mere scene basically, right? And almost in every Nojiko scene as well. So even if he's never really the main focus, except this here is the main focus, right? This is his main scene, and so on. But other scenes are kind of like he's there, you know, a supportive Flash character. He's there when Bele-mere gets killed, right? Then that's where he gets injuries. He's there with Nojiko when she gets shot, right? He's there when the villagers are trying to, you know, save Nami or fight Arlong. And then just again, Johnny stops him and Nojiko in the villagers. You know, he's always kind of there, right? But even so, that kind of his, you know, reaction and interaction, right, with the other main family, so Nami and her family, right, also really established him as a character. And this is why I feel that Oda is a goddamn genius, right? Because having Genzo not being the main focus of Nami-chan's flashback, but being in every scene there with Bele-mere and Nojiko and so on, so you can have a good read of who he is, right, you know? It's like Nami's bonus surrogate dad in a way, right, you know? It's like, yeah, and he hurt, yeah. And then at the very last bit of Nami's storyline, they leave the island, right? We see Nojiko like, what happened to your Pinwheel, you know? He's like, I don't need it anymore, right? And then we see this short flashback of baby Nami being afraid of Genzo. He gets the Pinwheel, and then he's like, yeah, baby Nami, you know? And that's like, that all tips me up, man. And that's his Oda's brilliance right now, because he basically has also managed to establish Genzo as a character, right? Over his, you know, part of Nojiko and Bele-mere storyline, right? And then that little last scene there, he's suddenly in the focus. He's the main flashback character now. He's Nami's the extra dad, you know. It's like, yeah, he got the Pinwheel, she gets the tattoo with the Pinwheel, and he leaves the Pinwheel, of course, at Bele-mere's grave, right? And that really seals that storyline. And it seals Nami's, you know, her family, right? And he's like the dad, right? And it's just like, man, Oda, goddamn genius. But anyway, guys, that kind of concludes my point, right? And I think, honestly, the best part of the whole flashback is that scene, yeah. When Genzo removes the Pinwheel, you know, Nami robs everyone, right? gets on the ship, everyone leaves, he's like, Luffy, you promised me, boy. And Luffy's like, yeah, don't worry, I'll make you happy, you know, implied, yeah, and then he's like, you know, puts the pinwheel on the grave, and then he kind of, you know, it kind of seals that, he has a closure of Nami's flashback, and her life, and her sister, and her dad, and her mom, right? So that is really like by far the best storyline. It's like, I think this is Oda's best work for the first, I don't know how many years, but I like Crocodile, you know, I like Vivi and so on, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that any storyline was actually as good as as Nami's Island arc until probably something like Enies Lobby, in my opinion, yeah, because Baroque work is really well, it's like a 9 out of 10, it's really, really good too, doesn't hit the high points. I mean, there are some really good Vivi scenes, I suppose, you know, obviously the X with Vivi is very good, and so on, right? But after that, you know, you get kind of the Yaya arc, Skypiea. I mean, I like Ener, he's one of my favorite bad guys, right? So I'm not like Skypiea disliker, hate to speak. I actually like Skypiea quite a lot, but I don't think it's as good as this, you know, not as good. But yeah, after Skypiea, then we get, you know, into Enies Lobby and so on. That's kind of where I felt, okay, now it's getting really good. But as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, right, I always felt that Nami and Nico Robin has, again, the two best flashback, right, of the Straw Hat crew. So, I mean, it's an obvious reason why Water 7 and Enies Lobby are really good. I also think that, this is not a video, I suppose, but it's a side note, I think Water 7 is a peak Oda thing too, because the actual, you know, I think it's Venice city design, right, the train, and how he really like maximized his not world building, but I guess we call it like set building, whatever. You know how it looks, so on. Yeah, I think that's how reason people like that arc too, right? It's one of the best storylines, one of the best flashbacks, but also one of the most interesting world pieces, right? With Alabasta, I mean, again, I like Alabasta a lot, one of my favorite arcs. But honestly, Alabasta is just Egypt. You know what I mean? Not to be that guy, but like Crocodile is one of the best characters, absolutely. And I love Vivi and so on. The actual setting is like, oh, it's sand. Like, it's sand, it gets everywhere, okay? Let's be honest here. The least important part of Alabasta is the actual design of the country, which is just Egypt. Which, I mean, is a nice country, don't get me wrong. It's a pyramids and so on, but the point, yeah, it's like, it's very straightforward, right? Where Water 7 was way more whimsical, yeah, that was more Oda like delivering on fantasy, right? Took Venice and made it even crazier, right? And so on. And for example, Zoo arc, right? It's not a good arc, you know. It's like, okay, they live in pineapples, and yeah, it's also more crazy. I prefer that too, right? Where Dressrosa is like Spain, I guess. Yeah, yeah. Dressrosa is also kind of like, oh, it's like a European Mediterranean city in Europe. Yeah, been there, done that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't hate that. I mean, it looks fine. Don't get me wrong. It looks fine, but it's not like, you know, it's not with the 7. With the 7 is way more interesting, right? But anyway, that's kind of my, you know, why this kind of matters. Now, I put a reaction part after this in, right? You know, rewatching it, got me quite emotional, right? It's a short little cut of the reaction part, but I wanna say it here. Used to be really hating on that live action, but seriously, right? The reason why the live action for me, right, massive dialogue core, is because I said episode 6, pretty good flashback of Sunny and Zeph, right, you know. For example, comparing the Sunny flashback to the anime, right? The anime ruined his flashback because they removed that Zeph ate his leg, right, you know. The leg instead gets stuck in the water, like with some shades or whatever, right, on some boat or whatever. So to save Sanji, he removes his own legs so he can swim down, right. That was a terrible scene. I mean, okay, it's somewhat still emotional, but at a point, it removed the whole concept of starvation. I mean, fine, they had to still survive on the island, but, you know, it didn't make any sense, you know. Zeph just survives, I guess, without eating, right? So, because Sunny, you know, is obsessed with always feeding people, right? And that's what he taught, you know, from Zeph, right? Sure, he had to survive with the food. But, you know, it really removed most of that point, right? So, that was weird in anime. And honestly, yeah, but the live action, right, is a better flashback than the anime. Absolutely. With Sanji and Zeph. That's a better flashback. Now, is the flashback better than the manga? Yeah. But, you know, whatever. Right? But the flashback of the live action with Sanji, yeah, that is better. Because it actually has more of that, it has more of that starvation, you know, storyline. You know what I mean? It's very important, right? And I hope people, right, if you've gone so far in the video, I hope people understand that, no. I think it's complete bullshit, right? I think it's complete bullshit. Every time people are saying that you're a hater and so on. I'm not a hater, because a hater or a contrarian, what's a better word for it, right? A contrarian would be like, every episode sucks, you know. That's a contrarian, you know. Not to say on YouTube name it, but I know one YouTuber, he's a very big anime YouTuber. I know him actually personally to an extent. This guy, he's a contrarian, you know. He's a contrarian. I'll say his name, but he's a quite famous YouTuber. And he's a contrarian because he hates everything, right? His second channel is basically always hating everything new, right? Doesn't matter, right? That's a contrarian, you know. I'm not a hater, I'm not a contrarian, because I hate F7. But I don't hate F6, right? So logically, basically the point is that if I hate every episode, right, then I will be a hater or a contrarian. But no, I have basic intelligence, guys. So I have the ability to say that episode 6 is good, episode 7 is effing terrible, right? That's important. However, to some extent, why I made this video, right, is because I want to explain, because it seems to me, people have glossed over half of his saga, whatever, right? Because this is like one of Oda's best work right now. I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from now. Now when I go over scene by scene here, why Oda really, you know, 10 out of 10 Oda writing right in his saga is of course the Nami Flashback. And that's like what I keep saying then, is why the live action to me, right, is obviously utter shit, right, in episode 7 and 8. And like I said again, I'm not a hater because I say that, because that is objective. Objectively, 7 and 8 are just miserably bad. Like, Nojiko hates Nami for some reason. Genzo completely removed, right? Like, what's the point of that, you know? Belemere, just an old lady instead of being a badass punk MILF mommy, right? Like, in fact, you just point out too, I said on the video, right? But, you know, Belemere is supposed to be way younger too, right? The actor is like 20 years older than Belemere, yeah. And looks, you know, somewhat, I don't know, like an average 50, I don't know. Bele-mere is supposed to be quite, you know, on a diet, she's supposed to be like a muscular, you know, Oda muscular style woman, right? You know, nothing hits, right? But then by also removing everything that I went over in the video, right? You know, like Nojiko's tattoos, right? Nothing in a bullet, Nojiko lying to protect Nami from the villagers trying to save Nami, Genzo's Pinwheel, Genzo building up the thing, Bele-mere trying to seduce Genzo laughingly, and blah blah blah, and all that stuff. You know, the doctor, but removing all this stuff, right? Nothing is left, you know. The only thing they have in live is the most shallow point of it, when Bele-mere dies and Nami cries. And for that matter, I felt like nothing when I watched live action Nami crying, because there's no build up for it, right? Remember, in the manga and anime, the villagers have, you know, been lying for Nami, right? Nojiko and so on. They've been lying for Nami for 10 years to protect her feelings, right? And at that scene, they are also angry, right? Because all took her money. And again, they all actually love Nami, right? One thing I haven't mentioned here, but put out, is that a good point, right, is that because Bele-mere is a, you know, tough girl tomboy, right? That no one believes in, that she can be a good mom, right? That also is an important characterization of the villagers, right? Because the villagers, not Genzo, him as well, but I mean the random, you know, non-named characters, they're like, Bele-mere can't be a mom. Have you seen that punk ass slut lady? She can't be a mommy. You know, that's kind of like their feel, right? And then Bele-mere is like this super badass mom and love her kids, right? And that makes everyone love, you know, Bele-mere, right? You know, they probably still liked her, right? But like Genzo, she was like a rascal. She was like a crazy fighter lady, right? She probably liked her, but you know, she was kind of like a troublemaker, right? When she was, before she joined the Marines. But after she became a mom, right? She's the most dedicated mom and so on, right? And that makes everyone in the village really like Bele-mere, because they're like, man, this punk ass lady, man, she really changed to be a mom, man. That is awesome, right? So that inspires everyone in the village, most of course Genzo, to really want to help and support Bele-mere, right? So by removing that whole shit, that they are like punk ass lady thing, right? And them all complaining on her, it really removes the film, right? And of course later on, when they all then try to save Bele-mere, right? Which is removed, that ruins that scene. And then later on, it ruins the crying, right? Because Bele-mere, you know, the whole thing of them tried to save her, and then after they failed that, 10 years later, now the reason Nami finally breaks down, right, in front of Luffy, is because she can't stop Genzo and the villagers, right? Because now they have been lying to Nami for 10 years, protecting her feelings, right? But they can't take it anymore, so they're all rushing over to fight all of them, right? is they did 10 years ago, and then Nami breaks down and starts crying because she's trying to stop Genzo, Nojiko, and the rest of the village, right? But they're all like, no, he killed Belemere, we all love Belemere, go revenge for Belemere, right? Yeah. So they're all running like that, right? And she's like, no, Luffy, help me, right? That completely is removed in the flashback, or sorry, in live action. Completely removed, right? Her crying was just pathetically nonsensical in the live action, because again, the villagers had no... There was no, causation of the whole city, right? Of Genzo, of Nojiko, and the rest of the village. So why would she break down at that moment? It's just like shallow, right? It's just shallow, right? That's why it doesn't make sense. And also as a side note, right? Nitpicky side note, my last point for export, is that why is Luffy listening to Nojiko? He's supposed to be like, hey, screw it, I'm Luffy, I don't listen to flashbacks, yeah. That's those kind of rewriting. This is nitpicky, absolutely, but I think those rewrites are weird, in the live action, because it's just like, why, you're changing Luffy's character for some reason, because he's supposed to. I mean, it's a very big difference, right? Basically, Luffy is all about intuition, right? They also changed why he likes Zoro too, so that's a good point there. So Zoro, Luffy picks up Zoro for his crew, not because of Zoro's strength, but because Zoro saved that little girl, right? In the live action, he instead first says, oh, there's a guy, that guy's a fighter, he's a strong guy, right? Because he's watching Zoro fight. That's a stupid rewrite, because in the original land, right, Luffy doesn't know that Zoro's a strong guy. He sounds cool and he's a nice guy. I want to have a nice guy like him, So he picks up him because he likes Zoro's emotion, right? And then he's also pretty strong right there. Same thing with Nami. Luffy actually says, whatever, Nojiko, I'm gonna go and save Nami, basically, right? Yeah. So he basically wants to save Nami regardless of knowing her flashback, right? Because he's just like, I know Nami, she's a nice person, I believe in her, right? Because Luffy's always about that, right? Being intuition, So he's like, I want to save Nami regardless of the Bele-mere and Genzo and Nojiko, right? So he goes there, right, to save her anyway, right? And that's a huge difference, actually, in how the live action then just makes him listen to the whole storyline and be like, yeah, and then him and Zoro like, yeah, we gotta save Nami, right? That is bullshit rewriting as its finest, right? It's completely changing who Luffy is. Instead of being, again, an intuitional person that has a good feeling of instincts, right? Oh, I trust Nami because of my instincts. Right? Think about it. Luffy's always written by Oda by being a simple guy, right? But very instinctual. Right? Mr. Tree, that's the bad guy. Haki, Basically, in a way, right, he has, emotional haki, right? Luffy knows who is the bad guy, who is the good guy, right? Zoro once says that Luffy always knows who is the strongest person of the bad guys. Like, Robert Lucy, yeah. Because he has the intuition, the feeling, right? But the live version instead removes that and just basically makes him listen to Nojiko completely, right? And then like talks about it with Zoro, and then they come to terms with, I guess we can forgive Nami, let's go and save her, It's a completely other person, right? So I think that the live version completely ruined Luffy as a character, right? There is not Luffy. He looks like Luffy. I give him that. Inaki looks like Luffy, but he's not playing Luffy as a person. And again, then also Zoro, right? He picks up Zoro because he's a strong guy, not because Zoro is a good person, right? So he completely removes that who Luffy as a person is. Now, anyway, guys, now I will show you a short bit of my reaction part of rewatching it, right? Because I'm emotional. I cried a bit, which I always do. I'm a crying for this flashback. I always am, man. I always like that. Man, this is so good, man. This is so good. Yeah, I have my dream of becoming a navigator. So this is a good point here, right? The Belemere doesn't eat food, yeah. Belemere is all starving because she can't afford to pay food for the kids, right? She's like, I'm just on a diet! I'm just on a diet! I want to get a cute boyfriend, girls. Gotta watch my figure, yeah. She plays it off like as she's like, no, it's just, I'm just an attractive woman, so I need to be on a diet, yeah. Like that's how Belemere is. She's like, I don't want to be a poor! Yeah, Nami's all like, stupid mom, you're poor. Here we go. She's gonna piss off Belemere. Right. But, this is... I don't want to shit too much on the live action, right? But I think we have to compare them though, right? Not because I hate live action so much, but... Like I said, this is sort of well written, and by far the best part is Saga, right? It really shines as Uda's, writing style technique here, right? But the thing is that is so missing, and that's why coming back to live action, unfortunately, I'm sorry, but that's so missing in the live version is that she gets slaps and so on, right? But the slap, it lacks a little bit of that characterization, right? It lacks a little bit of that, okay, why are they powerful, right? Why is Bele-mere, all the dieting? And that's something that, I'm just going to be honest here, generally speaking, the episode is so badly written, but it's like, it also feels like, they also have removed the scene when Bele-mere flirts with Genzo, right, and so on. So I do feel a little bit of, and points that it does feel very Netflixy, that they removed most of the dialogue about her being attractive and trying to, be a hot woman and so on. Yeah, which of course isn't what Bele-mere actually is saying to some extent. She obviously is a kind of flirty woman, right? But at the same time, it's of course her trying to, play off side. They aren't actually poor. She isn't poor. She just, she wants to be on a diet, right? Yeah. That kind of feeling is missed, right? Because what it leads into in this scene is, of course, that both Nami and Nojiko are well aware that, Bele-mere can't actually afford having 2 kids, kind of, right? Which was the next thing we come into. We're gonna see that Nami now is telling Genzo she doesn't want to be your daughter, right? Not because she doesn't love Bele-mere, she's like, that's my mom, but she's like, I'm too expensive as a daughter, right? So that whole thing is missed, right? That Nami doesn't actually tell her, I want to have a rich mom or whatever, right? Because she's angry at her. She's trying to, kind of like make Bele-mere kind of abandon her because she feels sorry for Bele-mere, right? And that whole level, right? And what I made in the video is missed in the live version. But again, I just want to see the live version, but I just want to bring it up, right? That's why this is sort of well-written storyline, because like I said, Nami and Nojiko are both trying to be like, oh, we have to take care of mom, right? Because mom can't afford us, right? And it really characterizes Nami, and of course later we're going to have Nojiko with money too, but also it's the start of, explaining why Nami is so obsessed with money, right? Of course, to some extent, all along is also, likes money, and the whole 100 million thing, but it still is like, the point is that, Nami knows that, all three of them struggle a lot, right? Because they were poor and so on. She's like, I need to get money, right? Yeah. And now Genzo, of course, also characterized Bele-mere as this badass marine waifu. What? She was a badass marine chick? It's like, yeah. So I love to see too, Genzo is like, yeah, your mom is badass. That the only scene they kept is this scene here, right? Where she kind of finds them. But this doesn't mean much. This is just that she adopted them. The real scene should be that she's telling, Genzo the doctor, right, to give them first aid before her. That's a more important point, right? That Bele-mere is like, no, you gotta like, you gotta give the medicine to my daughters first, right there. So that thing is missed there as well. That scene, her fighting them in the war, is at the least important scene. The only thing, the least important scene of the flashback, right? Like, I don't know. The characterization is just already willing to, die for her children, even in the beginning, right, when they were babies. Now, here comes one of my favorite scenes, right, of East Saga, of course. So first of all, the villagers want to help, of course, Bele-mere, and Genzo want to help her, so on, right? But, I love this scene here. I love this scene. Bele-mere is baddest, right? Yeah, here we go. But this is an important scene, because Bele-mere is like the coolest woman, she's the strongest lady, right, at this point in the story. Man, I love this scene. Bele-mere is like kicking some ass. Look at this scene. This is the coolest badass waifu in East Blue Saga. Was of course Nami's mom. Right? A large part, right, when I make videos because I love this so much. But seriously, this scene is really important, and I want to bring something up here, right? It's not to do with the live or whatever, but generally speaking, one thing that really bothered me is seeing that I made several memes, posts or whatever about the Bele-mere and so on. And so many people are defending it by being like, oh, I barely remember her. It was like the chapter 50 or whatever. But it's chapter 1000 now. Who cares anymore, right? That's a lot of people's feel to it. And that, to me, is probably a huge issue when it comes to that people haven't actually read the manga when it started, right? Because if you actually effing read One Piece when it started, like I did, I'm an old man, okay? I got my Nami shirt on me. I got every goddamn figure in One Piece right now. Whatever. When I read One Piece, basically, when it was new, right, Bele-mere was the coolest woman at that point, right? And she also was the strongest female, a very important part. People forget all the time, I feel, with the whole, is Bele-mere is presented as the strongest female, right? Because no other woman basically can fight. Now has some skills, right? So Bele-mere really was like the only, valid female marine, right, at this point. And then the next, of course, arc, then we had Lodge Town. Tashigi comes in, right, she seems to be somewhat competent, and of course Smoker being by far the strongest marine. But in the first arc, right, Bele-mere was actually presented as the strongest female character in each saga. I would argue that, yeah, Bele-mere is basically the strongest female character until we get into Grand Line, right? Then we get, Miss Monday, which is obviously stronger than her, very physically strong as well. And, a bunch of other, more villainous female characters, right? Because then we get the Baroque work and have a bunch of waifus, right? But think about it, there was no really female villain, right, in the first East Blue Saga. All of them are men, right? So Bele-mere really stood out as being the strongest female character. And I feel that's something people really forget, right? When you have this but we're at chapter 1050, whatever, no. Yeah, but you have to remember we started, okay? We started in the beginning, for the first years of One Piece, Bele-mere was one of the top female strongest characters, an actual strong character. Of course, now then, she's like nothing, right? Because now we compare her to Vice Admiral Suru and whatever, right? Her grandson. We compare her to Dollarson. We compare her to Vice Admiral females, right? And up there, right? But of course, much stronger. Then we have Big Mom and so on, right? But talking about most on the Marine side. Yeah, on the Marine side, there are no female admirals. There are only men, right? But yeah, so we have a bunch of Vice Admiral females, right? And they're, of course, much stronger than her. But you have to remember where the manga and anime started. And again, Bele-mere then was very potently strong, right? So it doesn't really bother me. Genuinely, it really bothers me. The people seem to just ignore that, right? People are just like, no, but whatever, that was a long time ago, who cares, right? But first of all, obviously, all the flashback characterization was very important, right, for the main characters. Nami is obviously the female main character. We can argue about pose, but I think easily Nami is the true female main character. Obviously Luffy is the main character, but of the feminine side, gender better Luffy is now. I think my point. Nami, of course, is the female main character. Yes, Nico Robin comes in later. Vivi obviously comes in, right? I like Vivi. I like 3 Vivi figures. You know what I mean? But obviously Nami is the main female character by far, right? We have Boo Hancock and so on. I know. We got Red and so on. But they're all like supportive characters, right? Nami is obviously number 1, and then it's Robin later, right? But clearly, then again, Nami's backstory, which is the longest backstory, right, and the most detailed backstory, matters a lot, of course, for the general storyline. Who is Nami, right? And Nami then having the strongest female character in East Blue, basically, right, as her mommy, right? They obviously. Nami can fight, right? We see her fighting people as a kid. We see Bele-mere teaching her to fight, basically. Bele-mere is like, yeah, beat the crap out of those kids, yeah! And so on, right? So Bele-mere, we can imagine that, okay, Bele-mere taught her some, basic martial art or whatever, right? So you can motivate how Nami can be somewhat potent as well, right? As a fighter, to some extent, right? Because, her mom was, like, again, the strongest female Marine at that point, right? Maybe Tashigi is stronger, right? But, in the flashback at least, she's by far the strongest female character, right? And yeah, it does bother me. People are pretend it doesn't matter and so on. But I also feel that it's like a side point, right? That I want to just point out here, right? In this video, talking about how amazing this writing is. But this is the kind of critique, I suppose, on the community. Is that it does bother me as well in the sense that I feel like people, like I said earlier, I think a lot of people haven't actually, read One Piece in the beginning, right? And what I mean with that is that, when I read One Piece, it was very new. Obviously, I'm better than you, but the point is that I read One Piece, right? We didn't have that many chapters. It was very new. I started reading it, when it was almost completely new, right? Like in the 90s, I'm an old man, in the 90s, right? So we kind of have this slow progression, right? Like I read a few chapters a week. Is the point, right? My point is that I read it, I didn't binge it, right? I was reading. Honestly, I think a big reason why people are shitting on East Blue, in a sense, because I always said East Blue Saga has one of the best storylines in One Piece, right? Because first of all, Oda's flashbacks are always a high point, right? And Bele-mere, of course, is the best flashback, and whole Nami, Nojiko, and Genzo, so on. They're all the best flashbacks. The flashbacks are the best. And East Blue Saga is him writing, the characters, characterization, Nami, Usopp, making the characters come alive, right? I always find East Blue Saga being one of the best sagas, right? But I think the reason people shit on it or ignore it is because so many people that are fans of One Piece today, they of course came in when East Blue Saga was finished, right? So they used to binge through it. They binge through it. They didn't sit there and actually get thinking about each chapter. Right? When I was reading East Blue Saga as a kid, right, when I was like 12 or whatever, right, when it was East Blue Saga, I read it right, per like very kind of his few chapters. Yeah, I actually kind of follow it since then. So for me, this was like, the beginning of One Piece. I didn't binge it. I was excited for every goddamn Bele-mere panel, right? Or whoever was in the storyline. So I think that's the big reason, right? Yeah, I think that like 95 or least, probably more, like 90%+ of the One Piece fan base has just binged through this saga, and because it's the flashback saga, right? It's the quick saga with the weakest characters. People just kind of ignore it, right? But from an actual character standpoint, it's one of the best storylines in One Piece. Of the actual, the inner personal struggle side of the characterization is actually much better, I think, than most arcs are in One Piece. And I don't know, it does bother people with whatever shitting on Bele-mere and other characters in the flashbacks, right? Yeah. Another problem with this, from a live standpoint, is that there's also Worf Effects Arlong, right? Issue in the live version. Like I said, I don't want to do too much on live version, but I think it's an important point from a characterization standpoint. So this is called the Worf Effect, and I think this actually is very important to talk about, even though I don't want to be too much on the live action, but I just want to point out here, right, that how Oda is a much, much better writer than those live action fools, because this is an important point that the live action really missed, right? The live action made Arlong a complete pathetic loser. Arlong was incredibly bad. The fight in episode 8 was incredibly bad because nothing happened, right? But one issue again then is the lack of scenes like this, which is called again the Worf Effect. So the Worf Effect is that you have one character, right, established to be powerful and strong. Worf then is sort of character. And then Worf gets owned, and then that established that the next character is even stronger and better, you know what I mean? So a big issue, right, is that in the live action, we don't see Nami's mommy being badass, right, So Nami's mommy not being badass, not only does that make, Bele-mere more a boring character and so on, not even say her name in live action, but it also ruins that Arlong isn't seen as badass, right? Because again, Bele-mere is the strongest female character at this point, right? She owns Arlong, which she like gets him in the trap, you know what I mean? Kicks him out, then everyone laughs at her and he bites off the rifle, right? And that makes Arlong look even stronger, right? Because we just presented her as the strongest female character at this point. Bam, Arlong bites off her weapon, right? Man, that guy's even stronger. That's the Worf Effect, right? And now we've established that Arlong is very powerful, while still making Bele-mere also look quite powerful, for a human, you know what I mean? But the live action unfortunately removes this whole scene, right? And it just makes Bele-mere look like a bit looser, and Arlong Arlong has like 0 feats, right? Arlong looks like a loser too, because he never really defeats anyone, because Luffy just stands, So this is a much better writer for Oda, right? Because he's establishing that, again, Bele-mere is cool and badass, but also establishing that Arlong is quite powerful as well, right? Because she can now lie down. Thanks again. She now can live here. He's so sad, and yeah, I really missed his art, in live action. This scene where Nami's like, "Oh, I want to leave mom." This scene is so good, man. But Nami's like, "No, I don't want to leave mommy. No, that's my mom. She's poor." And like, Belemere's gonna die here. Oh yeah, man, this is the saddest scene in. But this is the saddest scene. I don't know. It's the saddest scene for like the first 10 years of One Piece. You're gonna make your dream come true, Nami. And this scene was the Genzo is trying to help him to. Man, poor Genzo, man. That guy got to see what is a cameo and love it, yeah. They also got removed! These poor guys too, the classic death again, man. This is the saddest one. It's a heavy scene. Bele-mere dies here. Nojiko also is really well written too, right? Because Nojiko is like, I'm gonna get the same tattoo. Like, oh, I just got a cool tattoo, girl! Yeah! Boneshan, Always gets me too, when you get the pinwheel. Yeah, come on. Papa Genzo, come on, this is important, man, yeah. You gotta have the pinwheel, and now it's like, Nojiko's like, what happened to your pinwheel? Oh, but they all tears me up so. This is so good, man, that he's like, he got the pinwheel because, he was scaring baby Nami. There we go, man. Papa Genzo, man, he comes in here, Nami-chan! Yeah, and she loves it, man. See, this is a great point. Yeah, I actually recorded the reaction before I recorded the analyzation of it, so to speak, right? But that's kind of like, you see, I'm coming back to it, like, oh yeah, that's weird, why did they remove that scene and so on, right? If you like that, rate the video, please subscribe, so like button, right? And I'll see you guys on this Saturday. We should have the final encounter, right? Because Luffy and Kaido, and I think tomorrow we're also gonna have the next chapter, right?